everyone, it's Natalia, and today I really needed a new set of nails to really sort of bring the spring vibes back because winter's been going on forever. So I decided to do myself some strawberry nails. And I know that everyone in pretty much their entire family has a strawberry nail, but this is how I do mine. So come on, let's go find out. So here's what you're going to need. I'm using some soft gel almond short tips. I find almonds the best shape for strawberries because they're the most strawberry shaped. I'm going to only be using two gel colors, a white syrup gel and a red syrup gel. Both of these are Mayo Korea gels. I love them. They're great. I'm also using this 3D like non-stick gel and some green chrome. Those will be used together. I will also be using, instead of painting on the seeds, I decided to go with these teeny tiny little star glitters that I'm obsessed with. They're like my favorite glitter I've ever bought, so I'm going to be using those. I'm also using two different top coats, the Crazy Top Soft and the Crazy Top Thick. And then I'm also going to be using a gradient brush, a liner brush, and some silicone tools. And that's basically it for what we're using today. So as always, we need to prep the nail. So we're going to be filing the front and also doing a little bit of the back because you definitely want the cuticle to sit perfectly. Like you want the shape to be perfect for these ones because of the 3D elements around the cuticle. And after we shape that to how we want it, we're going to buff the nail so that no shine remains, just as per usual. And then once everything is nicely buffed, we can just take some alcohol and wipe it down to get all the dust off. I'm just using 99% isopropyl alcohol, getting that wiped down, and we are ready to make a little strawberry nail. So I'm going in first with the MBO one from the Mayo Peach Peach collection, but really you can use any sort of milky white syrup that you have will work for my style of strawberry nail. And you just want to put you gotta put the first base coat on that as smooth as you can. I really like this one because it's like very white. It doesn't a lot of them balance towards the cream. This one doesn't. So you're going to cure that, and then we're going to go a second coat. Because as there's a syrup, these tend to have a buildable coverage to them. We're putting the second layer on, 2 thin layers. And then we're going to stick that in for another full cure. Next, we're going with a dark red syrup. I'm going with the MHO2 from the Mayo Korea Hongyeon collection. And we're going to be putting that pretty much about halfway up the nail. You don't have to be super precise, which is probably the best, that's the best thing I can say about doing a set of nails when you don't have to be super precise. And we're going to be taking the gradient brush, and we're going to be brushing up that gradient up the rest of the nail. And don't worry about how it looks like kind of not great yet. We're doing another layer, so do not worry. And put that into fully cure. And now for layer number 2, we're going to put it a little further up the nail than we did before. And then we're going to gradient it, ombre it up the nail again. This is actually like a really good one because strawberries are not super, they're not all uniform. So this is a good one to practice sort of your gradient skills on. And then wipe off if your brush gets a buildup, you want to wipe it off. And I also like at the very top putting a little bit of alcohol on the brush because it sort of helps sort of feather it out a little. And then once you are happy with how this looks, stick it in for another cure. You can always add a little bit more if you need, but this looks good to me, I think, to fix up the top a bit. And we're going to stick that in for a cure. So I could have painted on seeds, but I decided to put these little glitters because I'm obsessed with them. And normally I would go in with the the Ivy Fix gel, but these glitters are so small and light, they don't really move. So I'm just going in with the Topcoat, the Jinbei Crazy Top Soft, so that it's like a super thin layer, so we're not adding too much bulk. And you just put that all over the nail, and then I'm just going to use a little dotting tool, which I first dip on my, nail to get a little bit of top coat on it, to just pick up these little tiny glitters. And you want to put them in like a sort of alternating pattern. Again, like they can be a little bit more organic if you want them. For me, I was just putting them, this makes it just easier. But as you know, like strawberries are organic, so if they aren't perfectly in line, that's totally fine. You're still going to get a very cute strawberry nail at the end of the day. So once you have you don't need to go all the way to the top with them, because we will be adding some little 3D leaves in a bit. But stick them on up about 3/4 of the way up the nail, maybe a little bit more. And then move them around till you're happy with their placement. And then you're going to stick them in for a full cure. All right, now we're taking out our sort of like texture gel. I'm using the Jinbei Crazy Top Thick. And we're just going to be doing some like lines, sort of a grid pattern, a more like organic-y grid pattern, which are, those two things don't really go together, but that's what we're doing between all of the little star glitter seeds. I like to start in the middle of the nail because you want it to sort of thin out towards the edges of the nail, so it's not adding a lot of bulk towards the edges. But we're doing this to add sort of that dimpled strawberry texture. I've seen ones where they do it in one direction and then come back and do it in the other direction, but I just do it all at once because I like when they kind of blend into each other a little bit, if that makes sense. I like when they're more subtle and organic looking, I guess is what I'm getting at. And then once you've got all the lines that you like, I just like to take my brush and sort of feather it off towards the end, because we're going to be covering that anyway, but I don't want it to be super bulky underneath it. So we're just filling those lines and feathering them out. And then once you're happy with how that's looking, yet again, another full cure. Now this is the most complicated part of this nail, but it's not difficult. So I'm using this like non-stick milky white sort of gel. You can use clear, or if you want a more pastel look, you can use white. And then I'm pulling out this green chrome powder because I really wanted that nice sparkle to go with it. And then you're going to just take the little ball of gel and you're just going to dip it right in the chrome powder and pick up as much as you can on it. And then start mixing it together. And yeah, this, as it heats up, it will stick to your glove, so do be careful. If it does stick, you can just put a little bit of alcohol on your glove and it'll unstick, but just sort of rub it around, and then you want to sort of roll it into a little snake when it's fully incorporated. And we're going to pull off little balls, and then we're going to take each little ball and we're going to stick it right on the nail, right at the top near the cuticle, and take our little silicone tool here, and we're going to make a little leaf shape. Now it's really important to sort of reduce the bulk at the cuticle, that you really smoosh it near the cuticle. And then just you can use the metal pusher tool if you want to do this instead, but I have these silicone tools, so that is what I'm using. And then when you're happy with your little leaf shape, which you start with a little circle, smoosh it up towards the cuticle, and then form a little point with the tool there. And then you can just add some texture, some leafy texture to it. But as these are kind of like cartoonish vibe strawberries, the best part is you don't have to make them too accurate to an actual strawberry leaf. You're just getting the energy of a strawberry, if that makes any sense. And this is a thumbnail, so I found that 4 leaves worked pretty well. Smaller nails, I would do 3 maybe, or make the leaf sizes smaller. But I found 4 worked really well, and I tried to make it so that the points would point in different directions to add a bit of, movement to the leaves, as it were. Always making careful to smush up near the cuticle, make it as flat as possible, which there's still going to be a bit of bulk. It is a 3D element right on the cuticle, but what are you going to do? But yeah, so we got this looking good, and put that in for a full cure. Before I'm top coating, I am taking a file and just filing around the edges to make sure any sort of gel that may have gone over the cuticle edge is taken care of. And then I'm just going in with the Crazy Top Soft and putting a nice coat over the whole thing. This does 2 things. One, we're putting a top coat over the leaves, which do need it, and secondly, we're sealing in the star glitters, which, since they're so small, you don't need to use a thick top coat. They seal perfectly well, but and so sort of melding that texture on the leaf to a bit more of a dimpled look. But I will say, right before, if you're doing like a whole hand of them, right before you put it in the lamp, take a brush with with most of the gel pulled off of it and run it over the texture again so that it doesn't pool. And with that, after you cure it, you got yourself some little strawberry nails. These did cheer me up, as winter still has its hold in me where I am. But every time I look at my hands, I get happy. So let me know if you made these nails or if this was helpful to you. Love to hear from you. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with me. I'll be back next week with something different. And I'll see you next time. I hope your nails are great this week. Bye.